Okay. First of all, thank you for taking the time. And we want this to be an instructive panel. Feel free to disagree. We don't have to agree on anything on this panel, but the point is educating people and understanding the differences between these three. I did my best, but it's probably not even close. I actually have three of the experts in this space who can clear up any misunderstandings that I might have generated with my lame presentation. But I want to hand the time over to the teams, first of all, to say, is there anything that you just violently disagree with in my presentation? Did I just get something really wrong? And Spencer here just can't wait to talk. Okay, go ahead, Spencer.
I obviously drew the short stick in this presentation.
It's a total setup.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the arguments, and it's still so new. Like, the whole idea of cryptocurrencies is a total of 8 years old. Of course, we haven't solved all the problems. The whole idea becomes, do you want to trust the government or trust these central, the Federal Reserves to issue your money? Cryptocurrencies gives you another option. I don't think that cryptocurrencies are going to be the only option someday. I think there's going to be a blend. And then the other thing is that you referenced Bitcoin, and there are a lot of limitations with Bitcoin in terms of speed, but there are now thousands of cryptocurrencies, and each one is trying to solve a different problem. And so almost with the combination of all the cryptocurrencies, you're almost able to solve all of those issues that you addressed.
Okay. Carlos, the country of Peru has some of the most advanced e-money laws in Latin America, if not the most advanced. Can you give us a really high-level understanding, not any detail, but just get a brief description of Peru's e-money laws?
Well, in Peru, the law probably accomplishes a different task than it does other places in the world. In Peru, we have a very low penetration of the financial system in the population. So it was designed, the law was designed to make it very simple to open an account. No? Because what we need is for hopefully everyone in Peru to open an account so they can have access to saving money. No? We talked about in the panel earlier with Jose, we have a lot of problems saving money in order to invest in education or whatever we want to invest in the future. So the central theme of that law is to make it very easy to open an account. But since we have the same problems as many other countries in the world with money laundering and stuff, we have to limit the amount of that the account can trade every month. So you can literally open an account on any digital medium, no? On any cell phone. You can open the account just with your ID, your national ID, and you can transfer in and out funds with no more information than that. But the amount that you can trade is limited to about a little bit over $1,000 per month. No? So it's very easy for day-to-day purchases. We will have to develop eventually on this law, but right now we have a very good way of helping people access the financial system.
When we chose Peru as the destination for this FinTech conference, and we liked the fact of the new e-money law that was initiated in 2013 and the work that's happening with BIM. Can you give us an understanding of BIM? What is BIM?
BIM is okay, all the banks got together and said, okay, we need to do something in order to increase penetration and let people from with lower resources to have access to the financial system. And how do we do it? So we wanted to give people anywhere in Peru access. So we designed a system, and all the banks got in together. We brought in the telcos, no, and decided a system where all you needed was a cell phone, not even a smartphone, but the really, really simple cell phones. We have over 100% penetration of cell phones in Peru. And you can open an account in probably less than 1 minute, and you can send money P2P and pay in some commerces So BIM is our initiative to do that, to be able to transfer funds within Peru immediately at very, very low costs and be able to hold money in your digitally. So essentially, we say in your telephone. It's not really obviously in your telephone. You can lose your telephone and have access to your money later. And that's what we're trying to do. No? We have about 300,000 accounts opened already. We don't have as many transactions as we'd like. I think we still have to give the system or the ecosystem a little more things and continue to push, but I think it's the central idea is very powerful, and it's focused on giving more people access to the financial system.
Is there a chance for non-banks, entrepreneurs to participate in the system? Can they interact and integrate with this and extend it? Or is it closed to just banks?
No, absolutely. Everybody, any digital currency issuer can participate. You don't have to be a bank. There's actually a lot of las cajas rurales that participate. And there's also other players that can participate. The idea of banks putting it together was because it was easier. We had the capital and the funds to put it together.
Right.
It's a company. Eventually, if it grows, it will have income. But that's not the idea. The idea is to make this as inclusive as possible. So if you're within the law, you can participate.
So as an entrepreneur, I could create my own e-currency application. I don't have to be a bank, and I could issue e-currency on my own platform within Peru today.
Yes and no. Okay, you can do that. In order to participate in BIM, you will have to have soles backing that up, and it will be within like a trust, literally a trust, that backs up the money that you issue. So you can issue, but there is real money. I don't know if the word is real money. Fiat currency.
Fiat currency, yeah.
Fiat currency behind it, because for this to work, there has to be a lot of trust, and maybe eventually, will evolve. But right now, BIM is backed by true fiat currency in a trust that is not available to the issuer or to any bank in that matter. No, it's the currency is owned by the holder of the wallet.
There. Thank you. Very interesting. Thank you. So Bradley, when I met you, you were doing this crazy thing. You were trying to invent a platform to issue a digital fiat currency, and you had spent many years building this platform. What in the world were you thinking?
I was thinking I could build a digital currency platform, which was a crazy idea, as you said. In fact,
a little closer to the mic. Yeah.
In fact, when we started I started on it in late 2008 and incorporated the company Wingcash in 2009. The ideas of Bitcoin were just really starting to get some traction, and it was funny. We had launched our service, and some of the Bitcoin guys found out about us. And the early Bitcoin guys were a little more liberal, and it's kind of moderated some. And they came in and in one of the forums and kind of slammed us because we were representing the currency electronically, and it was denominated. And so they referred to it as having all of the bad things that currency have, which is government issued and denominated and things like that. And so it's moderated more. But yeah, I had a vision of what we could do with digital currency and just stuck to it.
Could you share with it? Because so you chose not to jump on the Bitcoin bandwagon and the cryptocurrency bandwagon, but you took this center position, which is super unique and interesting, that you decided to work with the financial institutions and extend their capability rather than create a radical new front. It's disruptive to them. And but on the outside, these cryptocurrencies are getting a ton of momentum, and we're learning a lot from their capabilities. Share us with your vision in terms of as you created this, and what element. Just go ahead and share. Maybe share your vision. We'll start with that.
Yeah. So in 2009, when we started, Bitcoin didn't have nearly the traction that it has now, and there wasn't as much understanding about distributed ledgers and the blockchain that we've evolved to today. So when I started this, it really was to create a representation of a digital currency that could be transferred and exchanged in real time between individuals and entities in a way that they would understand. And it was fun. I tested this when I went into, as an entrepreneur, I got invited into a classroom of fourth graders, and it was my son's class, and they said, tell us what you do for a living. And I said, I'm creating digital dollars. And I showed a dollar bill on the screen, and then I said, how many quarters is that worth? If you know how many quarters that's worth, raise your hand. And everybody in the room, fourth grade, raised their hand because they knew how many quarters a dollar was worth. And for me, that was a sampling of the success, because I didn't have to school them on, I showed them a digital dollar and I said, how many quarters? And they said 4. So I knew we were on the right track.
How many quarters does a Bitcoin have? I'm
not quite sure. I think it depends on the day.
But it's a really interesting point, and it's there's one of the top investors in the United States said, you might know him, Warren Buffett, said, I don't get Bitcoin, and he's really down on it. And then if you take one of the top VCs in the United States, he also said the same thing. He said, you know what, I like Bitcoin, but it's so complicated. How are you going to bring that to the average person? So we have this gap here of technicians that love it and are driving it, but we can't get 50% plus of Peru to even a bank account, let alone move them into that area. So is there, that education gap is a pretty significant one, and I think there's going to be a lot of places to play under this tent. But that's a pretty bold position that you've taken there.
Well, I think this kind of conference is what's helpful, because you see the knowledge and learning of cryptocurrencies and the challenges that they've had. And I will say that the path that we've been on has not been challenge-free at all. In fact, we've had a number of challenges and pivots that we've had to make as we've developed the platform to bring it where it is today. So anybody that's developing technology, it's a living and breathing entity, because once you set it on the shelf, it dies, has a short shelf life. So this conference, this discussion that brings it together, because you do see in the market people saying, hey, we can create a digital version of national currency and represent that in a blockchain. Those discussions are happening, and I think it's those kinds of things that are going to cause us to get to a point where we can say, we can see how this can be nationalized, and we can see how it can become ubiquitous and solve the problems that we want to solve with it that we're discussing here, which is how do we get everybody to adopt it?
Spencer, you did a really nice job, like explaining blockchain 101. Some of the people here were not there the other day. Can you separate out cryptocurrency from blockchain and give us a simple explanation for that?
So the cryptocurrency powers the blockchain. The blockchain is a shared, secure, distributed ledger. So the ledger being a database of transactions. It's shared like you would share a Google Doc. It's distributed, meaning there are hundreds, if not thousands, of computers connected to that network, and then it's sealed through cryptography. And every time a transaction is recorded, it needs to be verified by these miners, and these miners are solving math problems. And in order to reward them or to incentivize them to keep track of all these transactions, they are then rewarded in this currency, this digital currency or Bitcoin. And it is very complicated. Even at that simple explanation, your mind probably hurts trying to wrap your mind around that. But the reason that it's continued to increase adoption and explode is because it's solving a problem. Venezuela, it's solving a problem in terms of inflation there. Bitcoin in 2013 took off because it was a way for people to own their money, whereas there was the Greece banking crisis where Greece was taking money out of people's bank accounts to solve their debt crisis. So situations are occurring that are forcing people to understand it, even though it is very complicated. So if that trend continues, that there are other crises, then I believe Bitcoin will continue to exist.
A friend of mine made a statement today. He said, after this conference, I'm going to get gold, I'm going to get some Bitcoin, I'm going to put some money in some digital currencies and hold some cash, and I'm going to be covered.
Smart. I wouldn't put all of your eggs in one basket for sure.
Yeah.
You've done a good job, because every single person I've talked to since I got here earlier today has asked me, do you have Bitcoin? Are you saving in Bitcoin? And every single person is going to run out of here and buy Bitcoin. So I guess I sold it well.
Thank you.
So is there anything you want to clarify from my earlier presentation, Bradley or Carlos?
I just want to clarify that I was in the middle, as Spencer recognized, and that I got the stick. So, loved the scorecard. I turned to Spencer and said, hey, I've never seen this scorecard before, and I might add that I love it, Spencer.
Yeah, I bet you do. Yeah, the only thing, I mean, there was, obviously, in your presentation, Bitcoin received the lowest marks.
Oh, did it? I didn't notice.
I'm sure you didn't. And, you know, for the most part, I agree with the arguments that you made. Again, it's just so early, and it's something that's worth exploring, and I think it's just like any early technology. Was the internet in the early 90s, was it the best solution for the existing system? Absolutely not. But technology has continued to improve, and now it's enabled it to solve a lot of problems.
I completely agree. Open standards with a lot of people working on it generates rapid innovation. And the HTML, the innovation that's happened in HTML to where we are today has been amazing. You create a standard, global open standard, and it will run over most of other things. However, when you run up against the national sovereignty of a country, you run up the ability of a country to manage its money supply. We run up against the regulatory environment where I like my bank to be stable. I like them to push forward in areas, but that doesn't affect my core of my bank. I want them to be secure. That's why I put my money with the bank. So I don't know how innovative I want my banks. I want my banks to be pushing and adopting new things, but always protecting the core. And I had this conversation with the president of Zions Bank back in Utah. And I said, you have to be thinking about Bitcoin. And I almost got thrown out of his office. He said, we will never, ever adopt Bitcoin. We are just hanging on for dear life, managing the current regulations they're shoving down our throats. We are not going to be adopting some weird cryptocurrency. And he about threw me out of his office. And so that didn't go well. I thought I was going to share some interesting insights on where he should take his bank. And I get his point. We have to be careful of how we innovate and protect the core. And so, but on the other hand, you have people that are suffering in poverty. And we have 12-year-old kids here in Peru that have figured it out, and they're working to solve the poverty issue because we're not moving fast enough. That hurts. Is that kids like, you know, if you guys are going to do it, I'm going to take it in my own hands. So the time to act is now, and I think my point of creating this panel is, can we take an incremental step forward without compromising the security and safety of the bank and not jumping into the Wild West, but take an incremental step forward within regulations and test in a sandbox environment. Many countries are setting up sandboxes where we can test without getting penalized. And I wonder if Peru could do the same thing, to create a sandbox environment for digital currencies where we can operate in, as you suggest, you know, $300, under $1,000, make small tests, small amounts, and go try things out so we can go validate this, because nobody's going to make a leap into the future without having some proof, and we can't take proof if the regulators are going to be down our throats, and so we just get stuck. Carlos, what do you think? One of the reasons we invited Interbank is because when I ask people in the market who's the most forward-thinking bank in Peru, who gets technology, immediately the name Interbank came to us, and so that's how we got introduced to you. I didn't really know Interbank. In fact, I met Carlos this week. I did the questions, I got networked with the CEO, and that's how it came back. What is, without sharing your secret sauce, how is Interbank pushing this conversation forward, and what things are you guys doing to push the social inclusion at ways that are going to be meaningful?
I think we're doing it at several levels, and I think let me just talk about the Bitcoin for a second. For us, I believe Peru right now is not ready to adopt something like Bitcoin, but what we're learning from it is very useful. No, shared ledger. There's a lot of things that we can look at and say, okay, we can use this. This is what we should aim for. Right now, as you said, we're trying to just give everybody access. No, and the only way that we can do it is with good laws, and I think the e-money law is something very strong, very good for doing this. I think the BEAM initiative is also very strong. If somebody's going to do it, it's going to be somebody that has every single stakeholder in it. And I think BEAM accomplishes that, and we have to continue working in order to get it. In terms of Interbank, as I told you, several layers. We're trying to be as forward-thinking as possible, continue developing our systems and our mindset to adopt new technologies. Digital is not an end, but the medium, which allows us to serve our customers and our future customers better. And the easier we can make the onboarding and the explaining and the education of financial services is the way to go. And we've been growing with this country the past 20, 25 years, doing just that and trying to figure out the next way or the next thing that would allow us to get closer to our customers and make it easier for them to save money and invest in what's important for them.
So it's kind of weird we're talking about the central banks in front of the central banks, but they're not on stage with us. But we allow them to listen and make their decisions, and hopefully we haven't offended anybody. That's not our intent at all. Our intent is to take this conversation from here and then take it into the real world and continue and do something with it. I want to thank Spencer for his thought leadership in the Bitcoin area, and Bitcoin has truly advanced our thinking. And the reason banks are having these conversations is because Bitcoin happened. And then Ethereum happened, and then the hundreds of other coin offerings. And all of a sudden, they've woken up and said, if we don't do something, something's going to happen to us. So if for no other reason than pushing that conversation, that's critical. And all the key learnings are happening out in this space. And as I've talked to the central bankers around the world, and I've talked to several countries now, they're all watching it, they're learning from it, and there's key learnings we're taking from it. So it's a huge part of the conversation. Brad, thank you for taking a bold contrarian move and going against the grain and creating something that the banks could actually adopt as one step out. As you look at technologies that are growing the market, it's usually one ring out that they can take a step into. And so you're taking, as I understand, you're taking the learning from these cryptocurrencies and the rest of the world, and you're bringing it into what's actually workable today. And you've been participating on the board of, can you talk about, just in 30 seconds or less, your work with the Federal Reserve on these projects?
Yeah, so we just took our platform that we developed over the last 8 years, and we put it together in a solution proposal for evaluation by the Faster Payments Task Force, which was a collaborative effort organized by the Federal Reserve, the central bank of the United States, to look at ways to improve the U.S. payment system. And we just wanted to, it was a voluntary effort on our part, and we just wanted to try to contribute and make things better.
Yeah. Did your platforms get ranked by the Federal Reserve or analyzed?
The Fed actually hired McKinsey & Company and subject matter experts that have been involved in initiatives like improving payment systems in 18 other countries, and they had 6 subject matter experts and various consultants that they could draw on in areas of security and other areas. And they took all the solution proposals, there was 22 of them originally, and ranked them against the effectiveness criteria. That was a baseline document that the task force put together.
If I can be so bold in public, how did you do against all the other?
We did really well. Our solution proposal was developed in part by some great students that contributed effort, and over a 4-month period we drafted that, and we came out second overall in the process because we were ranked against this baseline document that everybody was ranked against, and we did real well.
Thank you. And Carlos, thank you for taking a chance on it could have been a touchy subject in public, but thank you for, that's the kind of risk profile you guys have. You have this ability to go and boldly into the future and take those cautious risks. So thank you for supporting it. Thank you for attending the conference with us, and I appreciate the chance. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.